I looked at Game of Thrones and showed how it seems that the creators or the author was using a polytheist account of history, or a grafting in of that history onto actual history as the plot line. And I want to point out that it seems they are increasingly seeking to combine this fantasy plot and narrative into reality. One example is Time magazine naming the author of the Game of Thrones books as one of the most influential 100 people in the world in 2011. And a little about Time magazine. It was founded in 1923 in New York, right after the Council on Foreign Relations was founded. And it was funded by some of the same old demonically possessed people that we all know about: Yale grads, J.P. Morgan bankers, Brown Brothers Harriman, Standard Oil. And they're still running that fantasy narrative as reality. But back to polytheist history. In Game of Thrones, we had the dragon bloodline of the Scythian Khal Drogo, and he was a Scythian king. And his wife that he married, Daenerys Targaryen, and we talked about how Daenerys was fashioned after the Tuatha De Danann, Shining Ones, or the fairy people. And remembering that many polytheists worship the same pantheon of gods and parent gods, which were the same gods but had different names in different regions based on their culture and language and region. So I've already shown that the Tuatha are the tribe of DAnu, D''A''N''U, whose parent god is Anu, A-N-U. And many deities were regarded as descendants of Anu in the Mesopotamian regions and religions, including the Anunnaki. And one of the offspring of Anu was Inanna, which would translate to Diana for the Roman Greek pantheon, also referred to as the Queen of Heaven, who the pagans in Wicca still adore, or the Queen of Fairies. And this is also a Diana depiction. But I wanted to make more connections of the tribe of the DAnu and the Scythians in Tartaria. So here's a map I found, and it's showing these Scythians who were Indo-Europeans and who are nomadic. And in this map, it is depicted here as the Yamna culture, or the Kurgan culture, starting around 4500 BC to 2500 BC, encompassing Ukraine. This is Ukraine right here, and Romania to the left where it says Danube Valley. All this right up around here is Ukraine and Romania. Very old Indo-European civilization. And Romania is where the Transylvanian province is, and the old village named as Tartaria, where the Tartarian tablets were found, which were predating Sumerian writing tablets. And the reason that I just keep coming back to this very old region in Ukraine being the origin of Scythia, which is being fought over right now, and then Romania and Transylvania, which Charles wants for his princely title, and it all just keeps coming back to this region and these cultures, the old gods, the wars, the evil. I'm telling you. And where was it? I had something that I wanted to show, which was the article that just shows that the Yamna are the same as the Scythians. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. These Kurgans talks about it down here. Anywho, back to this map. Okay, they migrate all up from this Ukraine and Transylvania region up here through making Celtic Italy all to Europe into German, and they just keep going up north to Ireland and Britain. And when they migrate to Ireland after these Tuatha marry the king of Scythia, King Nel. That's what I want to show here. and he was a king reigning around 2500 BC. His mother was Scota of Egypt, and it says that he may have helped to build the Tower of Babel, which was in Shinar in southern Mesopotamia between Egypt and the Scythian region, kind of near Israel. They also migrated to Samaria, Romania, Transylvania, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, as you see here in this map. And I believe this was all back then considered as the Tartarian Empire. You see all these old maps of Tartaria, and it's kind of hard to tell because there's so many of them, and they don't look exactly the same as currently what you see as Europe, but it definitely all seems to be in that region of migrations. So when people like to say there's no Tartarian Empire, but if that's the case, I'm not sure why there's so many of these old maps. But in any case, it's not hard to tell what they were about. Here's their flag. Looks almost exactly the same as the flag of Wales. So these Scythians or Tartarians in secular and polytheist history are the ones who escaped from Tartarus, or the abyss. So these weren't the fallen angels locked up in the abyss that escaped, but the Nephilim spirit of their offspring. And there is some actual historical evidence of all this, and then you mix it in with the polytheist versions of the history also. So we go from the parent god Anu to the tribe of DAnu, with the shining ones, to Diana. And the elites do take all of this seriously, but in an occult way if you understand what you're looking at and all their history. And that's not just with the royals, elites either. It's examples literally everywhere, like with NASA naming all their rockets to Apollo and Artemis and other pagan gods. There's so many examples. But here at this bottom of the statue of Diana, Inanna, you see this green man, and it's almost exactly the same as the one on King Charles' coronation invitation. Almost exactly the same. Okay, I don't have that. Let me pull it up. See here? It's almost exactly the same. So, looking at Princess Diana, who was a DAnu archetype, or the goddess Diana archetype, Princess Diana, she was definitely a bloodliner, a Spencer, and some say more pure blood than Charles. She was sacrificed, a lot of people think, because of where she died at the Pont d'Alma tunnel in Paris. Paris being a city built by the Merovingians. Merovingian kings were pagan kings of the cult of Diana. And this Pont d'Alma tunnel was a sacred site dedicated to the moon goddess Diana. And they used to practice ritual sacrifices there, and maybe this is also one. One thing that I did notice is that she referred to herself in the third person in an interview with the BBC in the 90s during the divorce with Charles. She was discussing the campaign against her by the Windsors, and the interviewer was saying that the royal family just wanted her to go away quietly, and she responded, "She won't go quietly, that's the problem." And people don't usually refer to themselves in the third person. Very strange. She was reported to be very sick during her pregnancy with William. She tried to kill herself. She cut herself. And William is reported by some to be the son of Juan Carlos I, former king of Spain, who has a strong Merovingian bloodline, which is very important to the polytheists with regards to their Messiah, or the AC. And here he is. They're pictured a lot together. I don't know if that's true, but you do see a lot of photos with Charles, Diana, William, and this Juan Carlos positioned around William, always in this very fatherly type stance. See, here he is protecting him, and here he is on his lap, and he's always that's kind of odd. But in any case, you see them together a lot, so you see what I'm saying? And about this one Carlos, when he was 18 years old, he murdered his younger brother. When his brother Alfonso was 14, he shot him in the face. And it was reported as an accident, but they were alone together when it happened. So that makes me wonder if maybe this entire family setup of Charles and Diana and William was just a ruse in the first place to graft a Merovingian into the Windsor dynasty with William. It wouldn't surprise me based on what we're learning. So that's who these people are, just like the Game of Thrones. So you have to wonder if they're writing these books and making these series of movies and video games with many of these characters as protagonists so that we will accept the behavior, the Nephilim type demonic character traits and behavior. And that's all.